Hi guys, in today's session of CCNA series, we will discuss floating static routes. Before understanding what floating static routes are, you need to understand what administrative distance is. Administrative distance, or AD, is a feature used by the routers to determine which path is the best to install in the routing table. When routing information for a particular destination is available from multiple routing sources. Take Google Maps for example. It offers multiple ways to reach your destination depending on time and distance. The fastest path is selected and available alternate paths are displayed. Similarly, AD also works like Google Map here. It helps us to choose the best source path. So administrative distance is a measure of trustworthiness of the source for the routing information available. It has only local significance and is not advertised in any routing updates. Let's take a scenario where I have a source, for example, a PC with a network 192.168.1.0/24 on the left side, residing in a branch office, and then I have a server on the right side residing in a HQ with a network 192.168.2.0. As I said, suppose my destination network, that is 192.168.2.0, it can be reached both using a static route and a dynamic routing protocol like OSPF. So you can see, as shown in Google Map earlier, I have two paths available. So which route will be added to the routing table when the router receives advertisement from both routing sources for a route to 192.168.2.0? So administrative distance, or AD, solves this problem. The AD is a value assigned to each connected source. Okay, the smaller the administrative distance value, the more reliable the source or protocol will be. Root source with the lowest value will be preferred always. Let us see the different values on the table here. For the connected source, we have AD as 0. For static route, we have AD as 1. And for other protocols such as EIGRP, these are the dynamic routing protocols, BGP, internal EIGRP, IGRP, OSPF, you can see the AD value is 110. So you can see the connected interface. For example, a router has one or two interfaces or three interfaces. They are always preferred. That's why the distance is 0. And the next is static route. So if you have multiple options, so it will choose based on the distance value, AD value. So another last thing which I want to tell you about AD is, suppose if you have a value, AD value of 255, this means that the router does not consider the source of the route to be reliable. If you see at the end of the table, if the AD is 255, the route is unknown. It does not install it in the routing table. Now we know what AD is. Let's go ahead and discuss floating static routes. A floating static route is a backup route with an administrative distance that is higher than the dynamically learned route or another static route. The purpose of floating static route is to use particular path to a destination network. That is not the best route, but is used only when the preferred path is down. So the administrative distance of a static route can be increased so that to make it less desirable than that of another static route, or route learned through a dynamic routing protocol. For example, here I have two paths, okay, from PCA to the server, one through OSPF and another to static route, correct? So by default, it will choose the path which is lower actually. Since we have increased the static route to 8200, it will not choose this path, so that it should choose OSPF. That is as per our design actually. Okay, let me clear this. So as I said, the administrative distance of static route can be increased as we have increased here to make it less desirable than that of another path learned through dynamic routing protocol. So in this way, this static route floats and it is not used when the route with a better AD is active. So here you can see the OSPF is having a better AD here. So however, if the preferred path is lost, the floating static route can take over and traffic can be sent through this alternate route. So it is used as a float when the primary path fails. So this static route is called a floating static route. Let us take an example where you have multiple paths to a specific destination, similar like the previous example, where one path is used as primary and other as secondary. This will be our primary path and this will be our secondary path. Okay, so let's say I have a server in the branch office that wants to communicate with email server, for example, in the HQ office, and to reach the same I have two paths available, one in red, one in blue. So the red one is the private link with a better bandwidth, that is 10G bandwidth, and it is using a dynamic routing protocol, that is OSPF, and the secondary path is with a lesser bandwidth, that is 1G, but by default it will prefer this 1G link because it is using a static route and its AD is less. So by default, static route have an administrative distance of 1, making them preferable to route learn from dynamic routing protocol. But this is not what we want. We can make it less desirable by changing the AD to 250. Okay, and to change the AD to static route to 250, the command used is IP route, destination network, subnet mask, and the next hop with AD value here. You can see 250. So our AD value has been increased to 250. This will make this path as a floating static route. We'll do a practical of the floating static route in the upcoming session. That's it for this session. I hope this was informative for you. Thank you for watching.